Me too. I met John Mayer.
Wow, well, that's fascinating. Hold on a second, we're going live now. So we are officially live. Thank you all for being here this evening. This is our final workshop of the semester. My name is Garrett Mintz. I'm the founder of Ambition in Motion. I'm super excited, super grateful, super happy to have you all here. I am with Lexi Herrick. She's going to be our guest speaker this evening. We're going to be talking about how to make the most out of that first job or first internship so then you can leverage that to get to the next opportunity. So while we have the first 10 minutes to get started and allow students to jump into the workshop, Lexi, could you just share with us a little bit about yourself?
Of course I can. So my name is Lexi Herrick. I am a director of search engine optimization and data strategy for a media company called SourceMedia in New York City. And I have been working in what I do now, so in SEO and data, since I was 19 because of my first internship. So that's actually why we're going to be talking about this today. My first internship in SEO turned into a 3-year job at a technology corporation, which then turned into an entire career. So each one of those steps has sort of led into itself. But from the technology company, I went to an SEO agency, and then I got into the media space. And I'm in the media space because I studied journalism in school, actually. So, you can't study SEO, but you can study it in an internship. So I studied journalism. I'm really passionate about content. I run a content organization on the side, and I also do my own personal writing, both freelance and fiction. So meeting in the middle was sort of moving to New York City and working for a media company that combined technology, data, and journalism. So that's my story as far as how I got to be what I do.
That's really cool. So that's crazy. So yeah, that first internship really was impactful to you. I know a lot of times we learn, well, I think we have an idea about what we want to do with our careers and our perspective about how our education is going to lead to that next path. But you were really able to take that first internship. What about that first internship made you realize, like, man, this is what I want to do? And you knew that there was nothing else that you wanted to try, or that this was the spot for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, part of it is that while I was in that internship, I jumped around and did a couple of different things. So I was in different functions. So I started out pretty strongly in SEO. Then I moved and did some paid search. I spent a good portion of my time there focused on analytics and social media. I, at one point in time, just because of a reorg, ended up doing graphic design and working for the brand website. So I was really invested in learning about all of those different pieces and figuring out sort of where I fit the best. And it's funny, I ended up back at, where I initially started. But what taught me that I really wanted to do that was that journey, was saying yes to all of those opportunities, being open to learning something new every time it presented itself, and then figuring out where my strengths and weaknesses were and moving towards what I was interested in.
That's really cool. That's awesome. So you were working with a company that was willing to invest in you and to ultimately give you the experiences of trying multiple things. How important is that? I think a lot of times we don't realize the value of rotating and getting opportunities to learn a bunch of different things while in a job and an internship. How valuable was that to you?
So valuable, because I do think that everybody has that what if in the back of their head that's like, well, what if I tried this, or what if I experimented with this capacity of what I'm interested in. And that's normal, and that's good. And if you have the opportunity to actually sort of listen to the what if and play it out, then you should do it. Right. And I don't know if that opportunity is always there unless you're super, super open to it. Right. So this started out as a 3-month internship in SEO and paid search. And then at the end of it, they're like, you did really, really well. We would love for you to be able to stay. And I'm sitting there at a crossroads like, wow, I'm going to have to be a full-time student, and I'm going to have to work 3 days a week in an office capacity. And that's going to be a lot of work. But I'm like, I want to do it. I want to learn more. I want to say yes. I want to try all these different facets and figure out which one works best for me. So I did. So I did say yes. It was a lot of juggling, but it was really, really important. And it allowed me to figure out to answer the what if when I was 20 years old and 19 years old instead of when I was 28. Right.
Yeah.
So.
And where'd you go to school? Because I know you said you moved to New York City. Where were you originally based?
So I'm from the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, like rural, cows, the whole thing. It's called Hanover, Pennsylvania. It's the snack food capital of the world, though. So like Utz and Snyder's potato chips, that's where I'm from. And I went to school like an hour and a half away from there, first at Elizabethtown College and then at Shippensburg University, which is a Pennsylvania state school. And I graduated when I was 21. So I graduated a little bit early, moved to Philadelphia, and then I moved to New York City. So it's kind of the pop around the East Coast that I did.
So when you were doing the internship and you were enrolled as a student, were you commuting back and forth from Philly to Shippensburg, or were you doing that at the college or campus, like
So I was
location?
commuting from Harrisburg, which is the
Okay.
state capital of PA, and
Yeah.
it's an hour commute. So it was, first of all, another thing I got used to really young, commuting, which like I think that's why it doesn't bother me now, because I commute also as an adult, or older adult, I guess, and it really doesn't bug me. Everyone's like, "Wow, that's rough." I'm like, "Listen, I've been doing this since I was 19. I'm used to commuting. You listen to some podcasts, books on tape, whatever it is your jam is, and then you commute to where your best opportunity is, and sometimes you gotta do that."
Yeah, no, that's really cool. That's fascinating. So her track, how did that get started? What motivated you to want to start this?
Gosh, how did her track get started? No, I started freelance writing and blogging when I was also in college when I was 19. And I started doing it from my dorm room, just like any other person. I enjoyed writing. I thought it would be a good opportunity to share and to work on my writing and sort of fine tune my voice. And a couple of my articles went viral. And I remember sitting in they just did. There's really no other way to describe it. It sounds so silly, like we went viral, but like we did. And I remember sitting in my dorm room, like hitting refresh over and over again as like the number went up. And from there, a couple of editors reached out to me at the Huffington Post, Elite Daily, Thought Catalog, a bunch of other women's online magazines. And I started freelance writing and working with them. And then when I graduated from college, I was just, I moved to Philly and I was sitting there and I was thinking about the last couple of years and how much just not just professional development, but personal development writing had brought into my life, and having a platform to do it, and how awesome that was, and what a grateful, opportunity. So I had a couple of women reach out to me over the years asking if they could write for my website, asking if they could be a part of it. I didn't have the infrastructure at the time to support that. So I decided at that point that I wanted to have the infrastructure to support it. So relaunched as a contributor platform. Now we have over 100 girls that are signed on that can write and contribute, young women. We have some men as well. It's called Her Track, so it's like mostly women, but it also has men from all walks of life, from all over the country and world, that can have a place to post their content and, to learn and grow and share the same way that I do.
That's awesome. That's really, really cool. By the way, we're going to get started in a minute. So for any students that are watching right now, we're just kind of having like an intro dialogue as we have the first 10 minutes for students to jump in and get involved and join the workshop this evening. So Lexi, you are joining us from Florida. You are at a conference right now. What is the conference? Tell us about that. You're going to be a speaker. Is that correct?
It is. Yeah. So I am in this like weird hotel office room right now in Fort Lauderdale. I'm at a conference that's called BIMS. So it's about business information and media summit is what BIMS stands for. And it's a media conference. There's a ton of them. It's not difficult to believe that people in the media like to get together and talk about content and data, which is what we're doing. And I'm speaking tomorrow about integrating data into the newsroom. So.
Very cool. Well, that's awesome. So it is 8 o'clock. We are going to get started. I'm so excited to have you all here. Welcome to the final workshop of the semester. Thank you all for being here, students. And Lexi, I'm so grateful to have you here for our workshop. So for this workshop this evening, we're going to be talking about how to make the most of that first job or internship. So we've kind of gone through the genesis of all the things that you may face while a student in college right now. So maybe we're talking about how to get your foot in the door for opportunities, to how to network in a genuine way, to how to prepare for that interview, to now you've got the job. How do I go about ensuring that it leads to that next opportunity, whether it means an offer from the company itself or a networking opportunity from other people within the company? How are we going to ensure that you are making the most out of that experience? And so that is something that we're going to be covering this evening. Now, I want to set the expectations straight. I want to set your expectations properly for this workshop, because I know that if you think that you're going to come into this workshop and think, oh man, I'm going to get an internship handed to me on a silver platter, that is not how this program works. Now, absolutely, if you reach out to your mentor, if you build that relationship, if you build that rapport with your mentor, and you go to these workshops and you apply the skills that we're teaching in the workshops, can that lead to jobs and internships? Absolutely, it happens all the time. But it does not come on a silver platter. Just by having a participation trophy, just by participating doesn't necessarily give you the opportunity itself. You have to apply, you have to leverage it in your life and in your career. So for this workshop, it is going to be about 45 minutes of Lexi and I going back and forth, as well as asking you questions throughout the workshop during the during the workshop this evening. I know that a couple pieces of feedback that I've gotten is that normally I would ask maybe 2 or 3 questions to you all during the workshop. I'm going to try to bump that number up to more like 4, 5, 6, or 7 questions this evening. So be prepared. I'm going to have quite a few questions for you all this evening to just get more interaction, get more participation during the workshop itself. And so I guess to get started with that and to properly kick this off with a question in and of itself is, when it comes to the internship or job, how do you want people to feel about you? In other words, what feeling are you trying to convey about yourself when in the job or the internship? How do you plan on immediately setting yourself apart? So I want you to write that in the comment section. Just going back to that intention that you set for yourself for how you're going to go about ensuring that you are going to give off the vibe that you want to give when you are in that job or internship. How do you want people to perceive you? Write it down in the comment section. Now, one thing that I know intimately, and this is something that I learned from Dr. Robert Cialdini in his book Persuasion, is that he talks about the thing that is called what is focal is causal. By that, I mean what people see is what they perceive. So if you are at your office, if you are in your job, if you are in your internship, and your supervisor, the CEO, the people that you are trying to impress, see you on your phone, on Instagram, even if you worked your ass off, I can promise you that their perception of you is not going to be great because they're going to think of you as someone who's slacking off on Instagram. And that's not how you want to be perceived, because that is what they saw. It doesn't matter how hard you worked on any other project or any other activity. What they see is what they perceive. Now, on the flip side, if they see you showing up early to work, if they see you stepping up and taking on extra projects, they're going to believe that you're a person that's working really, really hard. Even if you're spending time on Instagram, but they don't see that, they're only going to perceive what they actually see itself. So what is focal is causal. It's extremely important. So it's all about the optics, all about what do they see. If they see you working hard, if they see you stepping up, if they see you taking on tasks, they'll believe that you're a hardworking person, that you're competent. On the flip side, another thing that I want to talk about is building rapport in the workplace. One thing that I'm a huge fan of is this thing called matching and mirroring. What do I mean by that? I mean, when you are in the workplace and you're building rapport with people, if you match and mirror their behavioral tendencies, they're going to build a subconscious bond with you in the workplace. So, for example, if you're speaking with somebody and their social physical gestures are to play with their chin, if you were to do the same, you would build a subconscious bond with them. And it's crazy. Subconsciously, they will feel connected to you. You can also match their speed of speech. So if they're talking really quickly, you can talk really quickly. They're gonna feel a level of connectivity to you. Now, one thing I do want to mention is you don't want to mirror their accent. So if they have an accent different from you, so let's say maybe they're from the South, they might have a Southern accent, or maybe a Southern drawl. You should not imitate that. It's very easy to sniff that out, and that makes you seem inauthentic. I want to be very clear about that. But if they're talking very slowly, if they're talking very quickly, you can match that, and they're going to feel a greater level of connectedness with you. Even on top of that, I know I typically suggest don't cross your arms when in the workplace because it closes you off to other people. But if the person you're speaking with has their arms crossed to you, you can cross your arms back. It's going to help build that bond. And what's fun, if you really want to test this out, because there are subconscious bonds that are built when you're working with people, when you're chatting with people in the workplace itself. If you want to test this out to see if it actually works, go to a friend of yours. When you're talking with them, notice the behavioral idiosyncrasies, the physical things that they do when they speak with you. Maybe they play with their chin. You should play with your chin back. Do it for about maybe 5 minutes. And then all of a sudden introduce a new physical gesture into that conversation. Maybe all of a sudden when you're making a point, start playing with your ear. And I guarantee you, you'll automatically start see them start playing with their ear. It's going to be the craziest thing. So for nobody that's here this night, or nobody that you know that's in the workshops that I'm obviously telling about, you should go and practice this. See if this actually works. I can tell you it does, and it's crazy. You'll be like, wow, I don't know how that worked. You're building subconscious bonds between each other, and you're getting yourselves in sync with each other. So that can be extremely helpful when connecting with other people in the workplace. Now, another thing that we talked about, and we talk about in every single workshop, and that is your strategy, story, and state. Those are the 3 keys to being successful in this program, because ultimately, and the most important thing, that is state. Ultimately, if you come into a networking opportunity or into an internship or into a job or into an interview and you are not physically in a state conducive for being successful, I can promise you, you won't be successful. If you are sad, mad, dejected, angry, jealous, anything that's negative, you're going to give off bad vibes. And people can see that. If you're hungover, if you're tired, if you had a long day, if you're stressed out, people can read that. Now, fortunately, your emotions can drive your emotions, but if you don't do anything to get your emotions in check, to affect your emotions, I can promise you, you're going to give off bad energy. You're going to give off bad vibes. If you've ever met anybody, they were like, man, like that person gives off bad energy and bad vibes. That's because they've got bad body language. That's because they've got themselves in a not good physical state. So what I want you to do is I want you to get yourself into a physical state conducive for being successful. So I want you to stand up and I want you to shake it out. I want you to get loose. I want you to shimmy. I want you to let it go. I want you to move your legs and move your torso, move your body, move it out, shake it out. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. On the count of 3, just scream. 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Just let it loose, let it out, let that blood flow. Because I know when your blood is flowing to your brain, you are releasing endorphins. You're getting yourself into a state conducive for being successful and retaining information. We've got amazing content for you this evening, and I want to make sure that you get it all. You've been in class all day. You've been at work all day. You've been sitting all day. You've been sedentary. That is not a state conducive for being successful. Get up, get out, shake it loose. It doesn't matter if there are other people that you might be distracting, because it doesn't matter how cool you are. It just matters that you are making the most out of this workshop. So shake it out, let it loose, get it going. Yes. So that's a fun thing. So the fun part about doing that is, I don't know where you were before you came into the workshop this evening, but ideally we've taken you to a 10. We've gotten you into a state conducive for receiving this information. I'm really pumped that you all are participating in doing this. So the next key is your story. So what's the story that you tell yourself? So what is it? What is your mindset? So are you telling yourself why you will or won't be successful? So this goes back to the question I just asked you. What is the feeling? What is the intention you set for yourself when you go into that first job or internship? How do you want other people to perceive you? If you want them to perceive you as competent and confident and someone that can accomplish the job itself, okay, great. How are you going to actually go about doing that? How can you play in your mind the visualization of how you can be successful and accomplish that goal for yourself in the job or the internship? So actually, I want to look at some of your responses, see what your thoughts are. Awesome, I love it. So, so Jaspreet, you mentioned that you are hardworking and you're personable and unique. Leah, you mentioned that you want to convey that you're more than just my degree on paper. Ensure that you're flexible, unique, capable of adapting to anything thrown at you. Thomas, you said that you want people to feel like you're capable, willing to ask people for more things to do when you've accomplished everything that you need to do in a day. Cole, you want your experiences in the engineering realm and how to solve problems. Ursula, that you're dedicated to your job or internship. Max, that you're an honest person. That's really great. Aaron, that you're hardworking but also personable. That's great. Darren, that you're competent in your work. Matthew, that you appear reliable. Samantha, that you want to make sure that they see that you are dedicated and hardworking, and that you're building relationships. I think that's fantastic. I think all of those things that you set for yourself in terms of your intention are excellent. Thank you all for sharing that. That's fantastic. So when it comes to the story, what are you going to do? How are you going to get to where you want to be in terms of your job or your internship? I mean, once you've gotten that, it's not just that's not the final step. Like getting the offer is not the end of the road. It's about where you're going and how are you taking that. So I want you to set yourself an intention for how you're going to make the most out of that. And so that leads to the strategy. So how are you going to go about making the most out of that job or internship? What are some of the strategies that you can go about getting yourself there? That's something that we're going to cover tonight with Lexi, our guest speaker. And we're going to talk about, okay, you've been into that internship, you've been into that job. What are things that you're facing? How can you go about ensuring that this leads to the next opportunity? These strategies are what we're going to cover tonight in the workshop. So every workshop, we ask for you to focus on a deliverable and a routine. The routine that I'm going to ask you for this workshop is to create a running list of 3 people you meet every single week and 1 new thing you learned about them. This can be a classmate, professor, professional in your field of interest. I want you to get into the habit of meeting new people. At the end of the day, I want you to meet new people on a consistent basis. But more than that, I want you to be intentional about what you're learning from them. So often we meet new people, but we don't think about, what did I learn from that person in this conversation? If you are intentionally and focused about what you're learning from them, you're much more likely to retain that information. The likelihood that information sticks with you is much greater. So that is your deliverable. So take a picture with that person or just type it down on LinkedIn. Say, hey, I learned from XYZ person, this, and this, and then tag us. That's how we know that you did it. And by the way, post it on LinkedIn. That is the professional network. That is the place where you go to post things that you learn. Tagging them is a cool thing. It just shows that you're grateful for what you learned from them. It's a good thing. It's not like a normal social media site where you have to post like a photo of you on a beach somewhere. That's not how LinkedIn works. LinkedIn works where you showcase the things that you've learned on a professional level and the things that you're doing to grow yourself as a professional. Giving other people kudos and shout outs is a great thing to do on LinkedIn. If you're thinking about this is your first post or one of your early posts on LinkedIn, go for it. That's absolutely what you should be doing. So the final thing that I want to cover before we jump into Lexi is our referral program. This is our final workshop of the semester. Signups for next semester have already started. I would love if you could encourage your friends in your chapter to get involved in the program for next semester. If you refer 3 students to sign up for next semester, your deposit for next semester is cut in half. If you refer 6 or more, you don't even have to pay a deposit. You are automatically in. I would love your help to encourage more students to take advantage of this program, to get more mentors, and to get access to more speakers like Lexi, like we have tonight. So I'm about to introduce Lexi, our guest speaker this evening. Lexi Herrick is a longtime fan of the glorious intersection of technology and creativity, where words meet numbers and the real magic happens. Lexi is the Associate Director of SEO and Data for SourceMedia, a B2B media company in New York City with 15 plus titles in the financial, technology, and healthcare sectors. She's also a longtime contributing writer and the founder of HerTrack.com, an online lifestyle community of young women. Named one of Folio magazine's rising stars in the media industry in 2018, Lexi is a champion of data-driven content strategy and enhanced audience engagement. She's constantly seeking out the latest tool, tactic, or test and loves the opportunity to toss around those ideas with the best brains in the industry and an unlimited flow of coffee. So, Lexi, thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I am so grateful that we're going to be able to talk about just making the most of that first job or internship. We kind of talked a little bit about that earlier, but I'd love for anybody that's a new joiner, if you could share your story about your first internship and how that's impacted you in your world up to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So, right, I talked about this a little bit earlier, so it'll be redundant, but it's still a good story. My very first internship when I was 19, I was a freshman in college. I was the youngest in the entire program as well, so I was a little bit of a fish out of water. And it was actually in SEO and data, which is what I do now all of these years later. So it really was the sort of spark that lit the flame for the future of the rest of my career. And it started out as a 3-month summer internship that turned into a 3-year job where I moved around to a couple of different capacities. I learned about graphic design and branding and social media, data and analytics, paid social media, as well as paid search, all kinds of paid stuff. Anything you can do organically, you can also do paid on the internet. So learned all of the above there. And it really, really helped me sort of frame my path, and not just frame it, but expedite it, right? Starting that early and having that amount of experience, not just in my field, but just being in an office and learning soft skills so early really just accelerated the rest of my career path. And it all started for my internship.
That's really cool. That's awesome. And that has helped you launch your career to this moment. So I think what I would love to do is I just love to ask the students listening in the audience right now, have you had an internship yet? And if so, what are the things that you've learned from that internship? Maybe you learned that it might not have been the right internship for you per se. That's totally all right. But what is something that you can take from that internship that you've already had and think that to yourself how you could apply it to your next opportunity? And then on the flip side, if you've not had an internship yet, what are some things that you like to learn from an internship? Please post that in the comments, in the comment section. We'd love to learn. So what I would love to ask you, Lexi, is how can somebody properly set their expectations for a job or an internship? So maybe I've had one internship or a job before, or maybe I've never had an internship. How can I get myself into the right mindset to best prepare myself to make the most out of that opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of different things here. The first would be you should really, really have a two-way communication and relationship with the person that manages you within your internship, right? You have to be able to understand expectation directly from them and maybe even set it a little bit yourself. If you go into the internship and you don't at any point voice what it is that you're looking to get out of it, then you can't really be disappointed when it doesn't work out to be what you want, because you never actually told anybody that's what you were looking to grow. And also that gives you an opportunity to understand what it is that your boss or your manager is looking for to define success. So then how are they evaluating your performance? How are they, seeing how you're doing or succeeding within this internship? So that's really important when you're setting expectations, is to have that conversation with the person that's going to be managing you. And then the other thing is to set the expectation in the scope of what it is you eventually want to achieve, right? Because I think it's really easy when you have something new, when you have something stressful, to get bogged down in like the now, but you really have to be able to think about how the now fits into everything else that you want to do. So maybe you're in an internship and you know that it's not the thing that you want to do for the rest of your life, but you do know that it's going to build up your resume and your skill sets in a way that will enable you to do what you want to do for the rest of your life. You got to understand that. And you got to understand that going in the door. Because if you go in and you're just negative about that fact, then you're not going to get the most out of that opportunity. And ultimately, it isn't going to help what you want in the end.
I love that. That's really insightful. I think I want to reiterate the big point that you made was, if you don't feel like that internship is going into the direction that you were liking. So often I feel like students just sit back and think like, oh, well, this is just a crappy internship. I'm just gonna like write it out for the rest of the summer and then go from there, without actually communicating what they would have really preferred to do or some of the tasks that they'd like to work on. How do you suggest students go about brokering those types of conversations with either their supervisor or other people at work?
Yep, absolutely. And I've been on both sides of that. So I have been the intern and I have also managed internship programs, right? So I have been in the seat where an intern is like, actually, I want to learn more about this. And honestly, you just have to do it. You've got to get comfortable, but it being like, hey, can we get coffee? Or like, can I put some time on your calendar just to like check in, see how everything is? Take that initiative to do it. Don't wait for them to do it. Because again, I've been on the other end of it. And sometimes you get a little caught up on whatever it is you're working on. You're like, yeah, the interns are fine. But like the interns might not be fine. And you don't know unless they come to you, which I've had different internships end up that way, where interns did come to me and say, you know, hey, I've been really enjoying learning about this aspect of SEO, but I was really hoping I could get more of a technical background to this. And I would say, oh, great. You know what? We have a tech team that I'm going to set up some meetings with for you. Or you know what? I'm going to invite you to my more technical meetings. I didn't know that you were more interested in that, right? So it's just starting that conversation, right? Having it, and then also being really, really clear about what it is you do want. Because nothing is more frustrating for a manager than when you come in and you're like, I'm unhappy. And they're like, okay, well, why? What do you want to do? And they're like, I don't know. Like, well, how am I supposed to help you? And it's true. You know, if you're unhappy, okay, what would make you happy? So 2 parts. A, got to do it. Set up the time. It's their responsibility and their job to have that conversation with you as your manager. And B, be really intentional and well-researched before you go into that conversation about what it is you want.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a really great perspective. And I think that was really helpful to students that are hearing this right now. In terms of making the most out of that internship, are there other things that you can do to set yourself apart? So I think more specifically, this question to you about how you've been able to kind of go from the communications perspective to more of the technical side. How were you able to make that transition? Was it a product of meeting other people within the corporate environment? How did you go about building those relationships?
Well, a couple different things. Networking, really important. Meeting different people, really important. But I also think it's really important to say yes to things that scare you and to say yes to things you're not naturally good at, right? I'm a natural communicator. I always have been. I'm pretty sure I rolled out of the womb knowing how to like communicate. Like I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to do data processing. I didn't know how to audit a site for SEO. I didn't know how to dig through code, but I did know how to talk, right? You should lead with your skills, with things that you're great at. Of course you should, but you shouldn't continue with your career believing that those are the only assets that you have. You have to be open to and willing to learn and try something new that might be harder and that you might not automatically be an A+ student at, for the goal of eventually just being more well-rounded at the end of the day. So that's a lot of how I made that transition. There was a time and place where I was like, ooh, like, you know, I'm better at presentations. I'm better at leading the soft skill of this. And then I learned, you know, maybe I am better at those things naturally, but I can be really good at other things too, if I'm willing to try a little harder and be a little bit more vulnerable to get there and to learn. So it takes being open to those opportunities, asking for them. And like you said, meeting and being involved in more aspects of the business, whatever that business is or career that is, where you might not normally or naturally be as proficient, but you know it would behoove you to do so. So you just got to do it.
I love that. I think that's a really great perspective. And I think for students that are listening in the audience, how can they go about knowing where and when the right time is and the right places for something like this? I think one thing you can do during an internship is to do an audit every 2 weeks, maybe every month. I would probably encourage to do it every 2 weeks, of a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. of what the internship is providing you and what the things that you are enjoying and doing while you're in the internship. See, so often we wait until the very end of the internship to kind of judge whether or not we liked it. But if the last project you worked on wasn't that great, or you haven't been analyzing the things that you actually, the smaller things that you really enjoy doing, it's going to be difficult for you to make an objective decision about whether or not this is worth it to keep pursuing work in this area or this category. Because I think a lot of times as students, we think to ourselves, oh, well, I'm already 3 years into XYZ degree. I have to keep pursuing this down the line. I don't think that's necessarily the case. So students, I'd love to ask you, while you're listening to this, what are some things that you think that you could do that you'd be willing to commit to help you more or less stay on top of your own thoughts, your own ideas about what you're liking within the internship? How can you ensure that you know that you are on the right track, or that there are certain things within the business that you're liking, that you're taking note of that? Because maybe you worked on maybe like, from Lexi's perspective, you were coming from a communications background, and then you got a technical opportunity. You're like, wow, this is really fascinating. I want to jump in and learn more about that. I want to ensure that you all are taking note of that, or formulating some form of process. I want to know, what do you think would be realistic for you to implement in your own internship or job? Write it in the comment section. So Lexi, I want to talk more about how can we become more comfortable with reaching out to other people within our work environment? Like, would our supervisor potentially find it like we're stepping on their toes if I go to other managers in the office to see if they'd be willing to grab coffee? What are your thoughts on that?
So it depends. I do think you have to have a little bit of interpersonal vibe reading skills to figure out what your manager's relationship is with others, or what their style of communication is. Some, I would say, absolutely not. Other ones, they might maybe be offended if you didn't talk to them about it first. So it is a little bit more in a case by case basis. But the way you can avoid that altogether is if you ask your supervisor to make the intro for you, right? So if you haven't met that person yet, or you're excited, just like, hey, I'm really interested in this, like this technical part of the business. I want to meet with the lead developer. Can you make an introduction for me? And then they're like, happy to. They make the introduction. It feels like they're the one leading it, so you're not going around them. And then you can continue to build that relationship there with the other person.
Yeah, I like how you put that, because it also makes you seem curious and more eager to learn more about the business itself, which I think ultimately is a good thing for the business as a whole. But I also think, I think especially as the new person in the office, you have a unique perspective. You got a unique position, because being the new person, you can go up to others in the office and say, hey, I'm the new person at the office. I'm the new intern. Would you be all right with grabbing coffee, or if you're of age, grabbing a beer sometime after work? I don't think that would necessarily hurt that relationship. And I think some people would be absolutely keen on giving that a shot, because, hey, you're the new person. You're looking to get integrated and acclimated to what's going on at the workplace. What do you think about that?
I do. And I think it's a culture thing as well. Like if you're working somewhere and it feels really uncomfortable or weird for you to ask to meet with somebody else, it might maybe not be a great fit. Like you should feel empowered to do that by the people that you work with, because you're right. You are new, you are young, you are there to learn in every capacity that you possibly could. So why wouldn't you want to take the, full advantage of that?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That's really cool. So speaking on the similar topic, is it all right to share my professional goals with my supervisor?
Of course, you should, 100%.
So how can I go about doing that? What have you done to communicate your professional goals? Because I feel like if I were to, my initial maybe thought process might be, well, if I communicate my professional goals right off the bat, it might come off as entitled, or that I'm looking for something that I haven't really earned yet. How do you go about professionally going about doing that?
Yeah, so I would say not to be worried about those things, because it is ultimately what you're doing. The way you could frame it a little bit too, but the way that I've perceived it as a manager is you're trying to help them, right? Because at the end of the day, they want you to be successful. They wouldn't have gotten an intern if they didn't have the intention of bringing somebody on board that could learn and grow and work with them, right? So if you come to the table like, hey, since we're just kicking off, I would be very proactive about it, right? Pretty much as soon as you get a feeling for where you're at and what the expectation is, be like, I'd love to sit down and just talk to you about where I want to go, right? What do I want to learn, and what do I see myself doing in 5 years, like the cheesy quote or whatever it is. And then sit down and have that talk. And I've had that talk too. I call it road mapping. I do a roadmap. Usually it's a graphic. I'm very visual. And I show them, this is what I would like to learn in this amount of time. And I will bucket them out by time. So I'll say like, okay, in 2 months, I'd like to do this here, and all of this. I also do this from like a planning perspective. So you can do it with any kind of goal setting. Say you're working on a project. That might be the way that you chunk up the project. You as an individual and your career are just one giant, really important project at the end of the day. So goal setting and laying it out in a roadmap fashion, having that conversation, it's a business discussion, and it should be something that your manager is really intentional and really, really, receptive to.
Yeah, that's awesome. If I guess in a crazy world scenario they aren't receptive to that, how do you suggest people handle that type of situation?
So if they reject your goals?
Well, okay, so for example, one of the pieces of advice that was given to me by actually a couple CEOs was this thing called the 90-day rule, or how I more or less rephrased it, the 30-day rule for internships, but a 90-day rule for a full-time job is on the very first day that you get started, you go to your supervisor and you ask him or her, what did the best direct report that you ever have do to set themselves apart? And then let them answer the things that they really appreciated having from a really great direct report. And then do those things, apply those things. And after you've earned that credibility over a period of time, of that being 30 days for an internship or 90 days for a full-time job, you then go to them and say, hey, could we have coffee? I'd love to share with you some of my goals and some of the things that I'm working towards.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of the scenario that I'm more or less bringing up.
Okay, so the scenario might just be what you're saying is if it's not initially something that they seem to be really receptive to, or that you feel would be comfortable or normal to do, that you instead, you space it out a little bit. You win some trust before you go in with that conversation, which is fine. I mean, I've had worked with different kinds of managers. Everybody will. Some people, they want to go in, they want to talk goals. They're like, we're ready. And other people, you come in and they're like, I don't trust you yet. And that's fine. I mean, that's just kind of how human beings operate. Everybody's different. We all have been burned in different ways professionally. So when it comes to trust, sometimes it's not as easily given, and that contributes to the relationship. One of my long-term mentors, he's actually at this conference. He hates the story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. When it was my second day on the job, I had just moved to New York City the day before. And I walked in his office and I was full Lexi. I was coming in hot, and I came in. I'm so excited to work together. Like, we can do this, we can do that. Da, 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 da. And he was like, whoa. He's like, I just want you to give me the tools. I really don't feel like I need your recommendations. He pretty much was like, I don't want anything of what I'm not picking up anything you're putting down. He was like super dismissive of me. Just because, there had been a couple of SEO consulting agencies, working in and out, and there had been some recent technical issues. So their trust was frayed and was fragmented. And what I had to learn from that experience after I went home and was like, oh my God, my boss hates me, was that it was just going to take some time, and it was going to take a little bit of a slower progression of working together and gaining trust and working on goals to eventually now, have been working together for many, many years. And like I said, he's one of my strongest supporters, advocates, and mentors, even though that second day he didn't want anything to do with me. Because it just took some time. So I would say that's my response, is that whether it's personal goals or professional goals, you're talking about what you want for your career or just what you want to learn, you might need to take a step back and assess and take some time to build some trust, but you'll get there.
That's a great response. And that actually kind of leads in the question from Abby. She asked the question, how would you go about sharing your goals with a manager or supervisor if they make you feel uncomfortable?
That's a really good question. So communication styles are always going to be different. Right. And you are going to have some bosses that just, for whatever reason, they make you feel weird. You're not really sure how to go about it. And at the end of the day, you got to do it, right? You got to walk in. I would say you go in and you're as confident and as patient and as direct as you possibly can be. And they might not laugh at your jokes. Trust me, plenty of people don't laugh at my jokes. Usually I laugh at them myself so that, someone's laughing at my jokes. And they might not laugh, or they might not seem like they're super into it or they're super receptive. But at the end of the day, it's your experience, it's your internship, and you don't want to be at the end of the 3 months like, wow, I wasted my time, I didn't get the full capabilities out of this because my manager like was kind of awkward and uncomfortable, right? At the end of the day, you have to be accountable for that yourself. So even though the conversation is uncomfortable and your manager should make it not that way, you got to still be able to take the initiative and power through. And like I just said with that mention of my old manager at the very beginning, he made me highly uncomfortable. And now we were hanging out last night having a drink. We're cool. We're great. He's the one that invited me to speak on this panel. So sometimes it's uncomfortable, sometimes it's weird, but honestly, the way to sort of prove yourself is to show that you can overcome that. And then at the end of the day, you're going to push towards your goals no matter what.
Yeah, that's a great response to that. I would completely agree. I think especially with your mentor's relationship, sometimes those relationships take time to nourish. So some people are not as trusting or willing to be vulnerable right off the bat, and some people are. And those people that take time to build that relationship with typically have the strongest bonds, because once they do open up, once they are connected with you, they very much are connected with you.
Yep.
So that leads to the next question of, I'm in this internship and it's going great, or it's going okay. Maybe it's just going like, I'm just going my day-to-day, whatever it is. And then I get an offer. End of the internship, get an offer. What do I do? How do I handle that?
Do you want the job or do you not want the job?
Well, that's a great question. What if I don't know?
Handle the offer. So a couple of things. I actually recently went through a situation like this as well. First of all, big fan of the pros and cons list, right? So there's a couple of different things to consider. If you are still in school, which like when I had an offer to stay and become a co-op, I was still in school. That's something you have to consider. Depends on whether or not you see that as a pro or a con. I think maybe it's a little bit of both. If you are about to go into the real world and you're like, this internship is going to transform into my long-term job, I think you have different things to consider when you're looking at that, right? And one of those things is whether or not you've seen what's out there outside of your internship, right? And that's just sort of the way it is when it comes to taking any internal position, right? Which is, all right, am I willing to move up and make this commitment and stay at this company? Or do I want to sort of get my feet wet and see what's going on somewhere else? So basically, when you get this offer, be very grateful, ask a lot of questions, because it's really, really, really exciting. Go out to dinner. It's awesome that you get a job offer, first of all. And then sit down and weigh each side of it, right? Say, is it best for me to stay here or do I want to go somewhere else? And if you land on, it's best for me to stay here, then that's great. And then I think the next step is sitting down with your company saying, I'm interested in accepting, doing all the negotiations that you should do, and then mapping out what that looks like for you, right? So what is the job description of the long-term career position? So, because that's different from internship.
That makes a lot of sense. I think often it's not, I often find that most internships aren't amazing, but they're also not horrible. They're more like lukewarm in the middle. They get an offer and they're like, oh crap, like I don't want to be, what if I turn this down and then I don't get any job offers? And I think that's a major misconception. Do you think that's an irrational fear?
I mean, I think that you can have that fear with turning down any job anytime in your entire life. Like that's just sort of part of it, right? You're always having the fear of, well, what if I end up homeless on the streets because I didn't take that one internship? And the answer is it's not going to happen. And sometimes you have to take the plunge if something's what you really want. So when I moved to New York City, I'd always wanted to move to New York City. I knew media was there and tech was there and that was going to be my life. But I was stuck between, I was living in Philadelphia and I was stuck between interviewing in New York a little bit. And like, I still had my full-time job in Philadelphia and I was moving towards like when it would naturally be the next step, a promotion there, but I was still wanted to go to New York. And ultimately what I did was, and this is a little crazy. So everyone, if you're, listening, think I'm insane, that's fine. I quit my job without having another job lined up in New York, or a house or anything for that matter. And I did it because, and again, I had the thought run through my mind, which is like, if I lose this job, what if I don't get another job? What am I going to do? But I knew in my heart that my goal was to commit to going to New York, that that's where I wanted to be and it's what I wanted to do. So I had to take a little risk. You got to be in flux for a second to go towards what you really want. And it turned out, got an incredible job in New York when I was able to really focus on that being what I wanted and interview exclusively in New York, gave my notice to my company and then made the move and did it. So no, I think that While I think it's irrational, I don't think it's uncommon of a fear, but I do think it's one that you have to overcome eventually if you want to actually not settle in life and go for what it is that you want.
I love that. I love that story. There's so many analogies that go along with that. I mean, are you taking the action that's scary but not dangerous, or the action that's dangerous but not scary? The action that's dangerous but not scary is the one that you stick with, that's really not fulfilling you, but it's the safe move. Whereas the one that's scary but not dangerous is the one that you know you're going to learn a ton with. You're going to take an action towards moving something that's something that you think you want to do, but you have no idea how it's going to work out. And
Right.
so I think you took the scary but not dangerous move. Another way of putting it is, if you're going to take the island, burn the ships. Don't give yourself an option to retreat, only go all in. I think that's a really good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
So I
Right.
want to ask the students that are watching this right now, if you are in an internship, or if you get an internship and you end up realizing that through this internship, let's say you are a civil engineer, you're in a civil engineering internship, and then all of a sudden you think to yourself, I don't know if I like civil engineering. Would you be willing to transition your career path based on the experiences that you have? Yes or no? I want to just learn. Post in the comment section. Students that are here, would you be willing to alter the path that you're working towards if you realize that it's not the right path for you? I mean, you can still pursue a similar degree path. You can still get your degree in civil engineering, but would you be willing to actually alter that based on the education that you've got? Would love to learn. Yes or no? Because ultimately, I know that it can be a tough decision to make when it comes to your desired career path. So anyways, back to the internship itself. For you, Lexi, are there any routines that you implement in your life that positively affect your work? So by that, I just mean, like, are there things that you do, like, do you have a morning routine, or do you have an at work routine, or like, do you have a going home from work routine that really gets you in the zone to like be your best self?
That's a really good question. Well, okay, so I'm going to start with a little bit of an antidote before this because I heard a speaker say this that was really, really cool. And basically, what she was saying is that, like, gone are the days where personal and professional development are just like these completely different things that live out on an island, because they're not. Ultimately, like, the ways that you improve as a person are going to positively impact your professional career. And with social media and with having your own personal brand, like, those are just so much more mashed together now that if you're taking steps in your life to improve yourself personally, it's going to impact who you are and how you perform on a professional level. Like, it just is. And that goes for negative as well. Like, if you're making poor choices and you're not working on yourself personally, that's going to negatively impact your life professionally, right? So, in terms of routines and in terms of what I do to get in the zone, it's just trying to work on who I am across the board, right? So I'm like, I can identify what I'm bad at. I'm bad at sleeping. So I've been trying to get better at sleeping, because it's healthier. It's going to help you in all ways. I can stay up all night long working, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to be my best self when I wake up the next morning. So right now, my whole goal around a morning routine is to just actually sleep before I leave the house, which is one of the big things that I do too. Also, I live from like a routine perspective. I live religiously by my calendar. I love it. I live it. I breathe it. I have to balance a ton of different stuff. And without it, I would just fall apart on all levels. Like, I have a personal calendar where my friends, my mom, my dad, my sister, they're all subscribed. They know where I'm at, what I'm doing. We can schedule stuff really easily. It sounds super cheesy, but it works across the board. And if you're going to try to juggle a lot of stuff, if you're trying to juggle school and you're trying to juggle an internship and personal relationships and health, then, like, yeah, you got a lot of stuff going on. And there's no shame in putting it in a calendar. It doesn't depersonalize it or like make it not important. It makes it even more important because you're actually committing to time management. So in terms of the routines, I would say time management is huge. And I would say whatever it is that you need to do, and then I do it for me, to make you healthier, well rested, exercise, eating well, participating in volunteering events, spending time with your family or your friends, whatever it is for you that makes you a better person, that contributes to your overall routine as a professional, it's all going to be cyclical and it's going to work.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
That's great. I love it. My routine that helps me get in the zone, I do it every morning. And this is essentially what I do is every morning I read for about 10 minutes. I do a miniature exercise, so about like 50 sit-ups just to kind of get my body moving, and then I'll do a cold shower. And the cold shower is a little bit daunting.
Cold shower?
Yeah, it's really good for your lymphatic system. And so what that does is it puts my body into a state of shock every single morning. But the craziest thing is it's a major gratitude exercise, because once I turn on the warm water, you don't realize how grateful you are for warm water until you've been dumped by cold water for a minute and a half. And so that helps me out, and that just gets my body into the zone. And when I've done that, I feel very accomplished. I feel like, okay, cool. I've done something that was really intense and really hard for the morning. And now that I've done that, I feel like I can conquer the world. So it gets my body into a mental zone. And then I'll do 10 minutes of just focusing on what do I want to do for the day and who I'm grateful for. And that's my morning routine. And that has really helped me get into the zone of setting an intention for what I want to get done for the day and getting my body and my mind right for that. So
you have a gratitude journal? It feels like that'd be something you would have. I have one. It's really great. It's just like 3 lines and you just write in it.
Yeah, and that's extremely helpful, because gratitude, when you feel gratitude, when you feel grateful for somebody else or something else, you can't feel any negative emotion. You can't feel jealousy, madness, angry, sadness, envy. You can't feel anything negative. You can only feel happiness when you're grateful. So I think it's a really great thing to do. So students, I'd love to ask you, what is your morning routine, or what is something you'd like to implement into your morning routine? I mean, I can tell you this, I don't think anybody's morning routine started with doing cold showers. It's a process, but if you can anchor it to an activity that you do. So for me, I can't go and start my day until I've had a cold shower. So my mind won't let me get my day started until the cold showers happen. So I force myself into that habit of doing it, if that makes any sense. So students, I want to ask you in the comment section, what are the habits that you have or that you like to begin doing to help you get yourself ready for the day, whether it be for a job or an internship or anything that you might want to better prepare yourself for? So Lexi, I wanted to ask you, switch gears a little bit. If I don't have an internship, what can I do to gain experience?
That's a great question. So first of all, you can do so many things with the introduction of the internet. The internet is like the most amazing tool for getting a jump start on any career. Like it truly, truly is. But ultimately, it does sort of depend on what field you're in. So I can obviously only speak to the fields that I'm from. So I know that. For example, I don't know if you guys have ever used Upwork or you've used any one of the freelancing tools, but there are a ton of things online that are just like communities for you to do work. And you can earn money doing them too, which is really great. It's an added benefit. But you can also get experience. Additionally, if you're a writer, if you are if you have any sort of specific subject matter expertise, you can contribute to websites for free, a lot of websites for free. And that's something that I did really early too, to get experience in writing was to just write. And to get experience with working on websites was to work on websites. So that's really how you can do it. And it's funny too, when I talk about working on websites. So if you don't want to use sort of an Upwork network, if you aren't somebody that wants to write, fine. I just say ask around to all of the people that you know that might be looking for free labor, because hey, if you're trying to do something, you're trying to get experience, you might need to do it for free, right? So for me, I've helped my grandpa build a private investigating website. I've done video montages for the YMCA and gone to their events and helped them with marketing. I have worked for a local Italian ice stand to help them in their marketing for pretty much free. So basically what I'm saying is, if you don't have experience and you need experience and an official internship isn't working out, you can ask around and help people do things or help their businesses in a way that you're trying to learn. And then that's going to set you up for your next internship.
Yeah, that's really, really great advice. I actually had not heard the Upwork one, but I think it's a fantastic idea. What a great way to get paid, get some contracting experience, and get literally some experience under your belt. That's excellent. So I wanted to ask you, maybe you got the opportunity. Have you ever been fired before, Lexi? And if so, how do you handle that? How do you handle that on your resume? How do you handle talking about that to future employers? How does that work?
So I have not been fired yet in my career, but I have worked with some incredible people that have been fired, colleagues that I have adored that have been let go. And and I tried to mimic their example because the likelihood that it would happen to me, that it would happen to other people on this call is incredibly high. So I think that's the first thing for you to recognize is that it's not like only the scum of the universe get let go or laid off or fired. That's not true. It happens to so many people. And I think I had the misconception that it's like, oh, you must have to be like super bad employee to get fired. And until I've seen it happen in the professional environment, like that is not true. You can be the best employee in the entire world and the company does a reorg and you get let go and that's it. And I've seen that happen many times. So the first thing I would say is if that does happen to you, please understand that it's no like super drastic reflection of who you are. A lot of times there's different, contributing factors to it. B, what I would say is from the examples that I have learned, a couple of things that are really important. A is to have grace in those situations, right? Is to operate with respect and with dignity, because if you do that, it's just going to be a completely different experience for you and for the relationships that you leave behind. And B, what I would say is to just be really candid to other employers about it. Like they get it. I don't think you need to say I was fired on your resume. I think that like if they bring it up and they're like, oh, why did you leave? You can explain, that I was let go for, this reason or whatever it is. Every situation is very different. But you should be honest. You definitely shouldn't lie about it. Don't start out a job interview deceptive by any means. But I do think that people get it because of what I just said, which is that it might seem like the worst thing in the world to you, but it's not when you get out into the workplace because it is so common. So I would say, A, understand that it happens. B, handle it with grace and dignity and try to maintain those relationships because you might be surprised that it could come up later on in your professional career. And then C, just move forward, be honest with employers. If they ask you, you don't have to say it outright. You don't have to sit down in the interview and be like, yeah, I got fired. Like I wouldn't do that. But if they ask, like tell them. So be honest, be upfront and understand that it's something that happens.
Yeah. And I think honestly, I think the more vulnerable you are about that, the better of a position you are to be in. I know one of the people that I've interviewed before in the past is a guy named Adam Posner, and he just talks about he had worked for Gary Vaynerchuk, and he actually got fired by Gary V. And for him, that was a really deeply emotional thing, but it was one of the most powerful things that ever happened to him in his life because he transitioned to that into what he's doing now, and he's doing some amazing things now. And it's the funniest thing. He actually ran into Gary V at a conference within like the last couple of months, and they totally rekindled their relationship. And actually, when Gary was giving his like keynote, he featured Adam in his keynote, talking about how sometimes it's just not the right fit. And it's, that you can be successful and more likely will be successful doing your own thing, but it's just not here at this time.
Yeah, it is. And learning to cope with rejection sort of in that way is just a life skill that you can take like forever in every single way, like professionally and personally and personally, just to be able to understand that like sometimes it just doesn't work. And like, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. And I would say it's also really important to not let it get you in a huge rut, right? To not let it just like challenge you on a fundamental level, because that's not fair to you either. So, you should learn from the experience, especially if like something went deeply wrong or you did make some mistakes. Like, of course, like you should learn from those and you should grow. I'm not saying that you should be like, forget it. But I am saying that you got to be able to walk out of that situation knowing that you're still incredibly valuable and that you're going to move forward and do great things no matter what.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. By the way, it is 8:49, so we have 11 minutes left. Students, if you have any questions for Lexi or myself, please post them in the comments area. One question that I had was, I know that you work with a lot of people with a technical background because I know that you work a ton in a data perspective, but I also know that you are a great communicator. But what if I'm someone that struggles with my interpersonal communication skills? What if I'm somebody that has very great hard technical skills, but from a social soft skills perspective, I know that I can improve my game? What are some things that I can do to get myself into a better position to improve my soft and social skills?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say start small, right? So start with some coffee dates with people. and kind of get to know them. And it might feel more uncomfortable for you because that isn't something that comes natural to you. And that's okay. It's going to get more comfortable, just like anything does. It takes practice. And it seems silly because I think that sometimes we're taught at a young age, oh, if you're shy, you're just shy. Or like, oh, if you're not a good communicator, you're not a good communicator. Like, what, for life? Like, it's chronic? It's not. Like, you can grow in anything that you want. There have been things that I used to be bad at that I'm much better at now. And that's just because you have to practice like anything. So again, start small and start practicing, but allow your comfort zone to expand. So if you're somebody who doesn't normally speak up at a meeting, walk into a meeting and consciously say, I'm going to contribute to this meeting. I'm going to verbally say something when the opportunity is there so that they know that I am valuable. Because I don't want to demean the value of soft skills. I think that they're very, very important. And I would be completely ignorant if I wasn't to say that they have 100% accelerated my career to be able to communicate. And the reason for that is because you have the opportunity to show people what your value is. Because even if you're an incredible worker, you're so talented, but they never really hear anything from you and they don't really know, that can be devalued more than it needs to be, right? So if you're sitting in a meeting and you know everything, but you don't tell anybody that you know everything, then they're not going to know. So I mean, I think it's really, really important for you to try to grow those skills for that reason. And networking, like, I can't even begin to explain how important it is to network. And it's one of those things that, again, someone's like, it seems sort of soft. It's not soft. Okay. It has led me to innumerous amounts of opportunities that just came from meeting people. The event I'm at right now and the event I was at before came from meeting somebody at a different event that I was in Atlanta by myself. I went to the happy hour, had nobody else there but me, made some friends, got 2 more speaking opportunities from that. Like, that's how those things work. You have to be able to put yourself out there. So if that is something that comes uncomfortable to you, yeah, work on that day in and day out and practice, and you'll get there.
Love it. So Leah asked the question, if I don't know what I want to do, criminology degree, but not necessarily focus on going into that field, how can I go about looking for internships, especially never having done one before?
That's a really good question. So you don't know what you want to do in the end, but you know you're interested at least on some level in criminology, or else maybe you wouldn't be studying it, right? So if that's the case, I'd say, again, be open and try and look for something that is sort of related to your degree, because it is going to help you get in the door. One of my really, really good friends also has a criminology degree, and she initially was in the same spot. She didn't really know where she wanted to go. She wasn't sure. She took an initial internship that was criminology, but there was like a high like data component of it. And she's like, I don't really know if I'm into this. Like, I don't know if I like data, but I don't know what I want to do with criminology, so I might as well try. So she ends up trying it, and now she works in the financial crimes unit of Wells Fargo in New York City. So again, like that, yeah, it's like it's internship to internship. She tried it a little bit, ended up really liking data, ended up into the financial sort of specific crime unit of it. It's not criminology in a standard way that you'd imagine it, because she's actually on the banking side of things now, but that's how she got there, is from trying that internship. So I would say, don't be completely against trying something that's within the degree that maybe you're not sure about, because it could lead you to something that you are sure about down the line.
Yeah, Leah, I think you should go for any and all and every internship you possibly can during the semester, during the winter, during the summer, during any time that you can, to get as many experiences as you possibly can, because I think the more experiences you can have, the more education you can have, and the more education you can have, the more preparation you can have for making the best possible decision you can for your career path. So yes, get as many experiences as you can in as wide a variety of places. Like, for you, it would not make, if you had an internship and then they offered you to come back to do another internship there for the following summer, I wouldn't suggest that, because ultimately, if you know that you're still kind of figuring out exactly what you want to do, you want to be trying as many different things as you possibly can. And if you're doing the exact same thing over again, that's not going to help you. Mm-hmm. So Abby asked the question, what do you do if you believe you haven't been performing at your best, but you feel like you can't because you don't fit with the culture?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question is, what do you do if you believe you haven't been performing at your best, but you feel like you can't because you don't fit with the culture? So I am not performing at my best, and I'm struggling to perform my best, but I also don't feel like I fit with the culture, so it doesn't feel like it's giving me an environment to perform my best.
Yeah, so then I would say that it's not a good fit. Culture, it's incredibly important, no matter what, especially if you're making a decision about your long-term career. You want to be somewhere where you feel like you can succeed. It matters more than than anything. Truly, it really, really does. Because it's going to be the place that you go day in and day out. This is going to be the place where you sort of like, they become your family in a lot of ways, and the people that are going to build you up and help you grow. So if you feel like you can't succeed because the environment doesn't allow you to succeed, then I don't think that's a good long-term fit in the end.
What about within the internship of a 3-month internship itself? Do you just kind of suck it up and just do your best and just like try to build that rapport and earn that credibility and just try to grab that recommendation and then move on?
Yeah, I do. I think that it's to your point, if it's a short-term internship, like I wouldn't just like quit because it's not working. I would definitely ride it out until the end and have a candid conversation with your manager if you could and say, hey, like I'm trying my best, but I'm not really sure. Although if you really don't agree with the culture, I imagine maybe the conversation with manager wouldn't be incredibly helpful, but maybe it could. So you could always try. And then write it out. To your point, do your absolute best. But just, again, you're going to learn something from that. You learn when you go to a company that you don't fit within the culture because it teaches you about what kind of culture you do want. So, don't end that internship like I learned nothing, because you did learn something. You learned what kind of culture you're not looking for.
Totally. Yeah, there's no such thing as failure. There's only such thing as learning, which makes a ton of sense. Aaron asked a question: is it worth taking an internship in a field I don't really like?
I mean, yeah. Is it the only internship that you have on the table, or are there other ones? Because I guess, okay, an internship is better than no internship, right? So at the end of the day, if you're gonna get experience, if you're gonna get out there, maybe you think you don't like it, but you're not really sure until you try, right? I'd say if you're sitting there and you've got 5 or 6 internships lined up, and you at that point you have the choice, then okay, sure, pick the one that's in the industry that you think you'd be the most interested in. But if you get offered an opportunity, any opportunity at all, even though you might not be sure if you like that industry, I do think that you should try it. There have been many times that I have admittedly been wrong, or that I have misjudged an opportunity, and then I've gone and tried it out and been like, wow, actually this is really, really great, or really, really interested. So I'd say if it came down to it, any internship is better than none.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And there could be some things that you learn about that internship, just like you had mentioned. There could be a data play within that internship that you're like, whoa, that's really cool, that you could take and really dive into more further detail. So I think there are components within the internships and the jobs that you have opportunities to that can open doors to actually what you end up enjoying and prefer to do.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here, Lexi. And students, thank you so much for being here this evening. This was our final workshop. I hope you all really enjoyed this semester. I'm so grateful to have you all here. This has been such a fun time. I hope you've taken a lot from this experience. Hopefully you've had your 3 conversations. If not, get on it. The way that you track that is you go to our website, just post it in the the date that you've had your mentor meetings. And then once that date has surpassed, we will send an automated email to both you and your mentor to say, hey, how was your meeting? Thumbs up, thumbs down, didn't happen. That's how we track that it actually happened. If somebody says didn't happen, then it just reopens and allows you to reschedule for whenever works for you. The routine, the deliverable from this workshop is to identify 3 people that you meet. And I want you to identify 3 people you meet every single week, but one new thing that you learned about them, and then post that on LinkedIn or take a picture with them and send it to my email. Either one works. That's how you can get credit for that. And then next semester, so you've had this first semester of mentorship, or maybe this is your second semester of mentorship, or maybe it's your 3rd semester of mentorship. Maybe you've been taking advantage of it for multiple semesters now. Keep coming back, because ultimately we want to build your board of advisors. I mean, at the end of the day, having one mentor is great, but having multiple mentors is even better, because those are different perspectives that you can go to for guidance and insight. So as you grow your career, as you grow your path, as you gain new perspective on life and what you want to pursue, having these guest speakers like Lexi and any of our guest speakers coming in, having your mentor, having people that you can go to get this insight and advice can help you really make the best decision you can for yourself as you move forward. Even if you got the job, even if you got the internship, keep coming back. There's a reason why we have actually many alumni who are now in their careers that come back and actually get mentors through your organization's mentorship program. And it's because maybe that first career they got wasn't the right fit, or because they know the value of networking and continuing to expand that network. So I strongly encourage you to sign up next semester to continue to take advantage of this program, because I think that you're really going to enjoy it. And if you can, we have the referral program. If you can help encourage your peers in your chapter to get involved and sign up next semester, would greatly appreciate it. So yeah, I'm excited to help launch you into your next career. So Lexi, how can students find you? How can students connect with you? How can students stay in touch with you?
Yes, I was actually just going to say that. So I'm on all social media. I'm very active on all of them. My name's Lexi Herrick, and my Twitter and my Instagram handle are Lexi_Herrick. Very on brand of me. So LEXI_HERRICK. And you can tweet at me. You can send me an Instagram message. And I know we can also have my email in here if you prefer that. On LinkedIn, I'm also Lexi Herrick. Feel free to connect with me. I love to share fun stuff that's going on in the industry. And yeah, if you have any more questions or anything that you just want to chat about, let me know.
That's awesome. Well, Lexi, thank you so much for being here. Students, thank you so much for being here and being so active and participant in these workshops over the course of the semester. I'm so grateful. And yeah, I'm so excited to have you all in the program next semester. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.